Jack Turner had learned long ago that silence could be louder than any alarm. The deeper you went into the abandoned levels of the outpost, the more that silence pressed against your ears, heavy and watchful. He had been working maintenance for 6 years, and he thought he had seen every rusted pipe, every broken panel, every flickering light. But this was different. He wiped sweat from his forehead, even though the air was cold. His lamp cut across steel walls coated with dust. He should not even be down here. The orders from command had been simple: inspect the lower levels, see if the power loss came from the ancient generators. Yet his steps had carried him deeper, past places no one had touched in decades. That was when he saw the door. It was not human. He knew that instantly. The frame was too smooth, the metal too dark, the patterns etched across it glowing faintly with a light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The station had been built only 50 years ago. This door looked older than history itself. Do not touch it. The voice snapped through the silence. Jack spun, lamp swinging across the corridor. At first, he thought the shadows had spoken. Then he saw her. She was young, or at least she looked it. Her skin shimmered faintly like silver under the light, and her eyes were large, glowing with a soft blue radiance. Her hair fell around her shoulders in pale strands, and her thin frame was wrapped in some kind of black suit that looked alive, as if it shifted with her breath. Jack's mouth went dry. Who the hell are you? The girl stepped closer, but her eyes stayed locked on the sealed door. My name is Liara, and if you value your life, if you value the lives of everyone on this station, you will turn around right now and leave this place sealed. Jack frowned. You are not supposed to be here. This section has been abandoned for years. Her gaze finally shifted to him. It was abandoned because of what is behind that door. Her words carried no hesitation, no doubt. And yet, something about her voice trembled, as though even speaking of it was dangerous. Jack's first instinct was suspicion. An alien girl, hiding in the abandoned levels of a human outpost? That made no sense. But then he looked at the door again, felt the way the air seemed to vibrate faintly the closer he came. He felt it pressing against him, as if something on the other side was aware of him already. Liara's voice grew sharp. Listen to me. My people built this prison long before your species learned to walk upright. We sacrificed entire generations to lock the creature away. If you open it, you will not just doom yourself. You will doom everyone. Jack should have listened. He should have turned back, sealed the corridors, reported nothing. But orders were orders, and command had made it clear. Inspect everything, especially anomalies. And Jack had a dangerous flaw buried deep inside him: curiosity. He took a step closer to the door. The faint glow across its surface seemed to flare brighter, as if reacting to him. Liara's face twisted with fear. She grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Please. You do not understand what waits behind there. Jack looked at her, at the panic in her glowing eyes, and for a moment he hesitated. But then the communicator in his ear crackled with the cold voice of his supervisor. Turner, report. We have your location. If you have found something unusual, document it. If there is a sealed structure, your orders are to open it. Do you copy? The words felt heavy. Liara's hand shook against his arm. Jack swallowed. I copy. Her expression collapsed. Then it is already too late. Jack pressed his palm against the surface of the door. The metal was cold, far colder than the surrounding air, but there was something else beneath it, like a faint vibration, a whisper that crawled up his arm and sank into his bones. For a moment he thought he heard words, too faint to understand, but filled with a promise both tempting and terrifying. Liara staggered back, her face pale. You feel it now, do you not? That is its hunger. It has been waiting for you. Jack pulled his hand away, shaking it as if trying to rid himself of the sensation. He took a step back, but the communicator in his ear hissed again. Turner, open the structure. That is an order. You will be rewarded for your discovery. Rewarded. The word cut through his hesitation. His life had been nothing but routine repairs and long nights in cold steel halls. He had dreamed of more, dreamed of finding something worth his years of isolation. And now he stood before it. He tried to speak, to explain what he felt, but Liara suddenly moved between him and the door. She lifted her hands, palms outward, and the black suit covering her shimmered with veins of light, forming a barrier that looked fragile but hummed with energy. I will not let you do this, she said. Jack blinked in shock. What are you doing? You cannot stop me. This is my job. Her voice broke, but she stood firm. If I must, I will fight you. You do not understand. That thing behind the door is not just dangerous. It does not simply kill. It eats the mind. It will take your fears, your regrets, every shadow of your thoughts, and make them real. It will strip away everything that makes you human, until nothing is left but hunger. Her words made the silence thicker, heavier. Jack's chest tightened. He could turn away. He could climb back to the surface, report nothing. But Command would know. They were watching his locator, listening to his comms. He could almost hear the cold fury in their voices if he disobeyed. Jack's jaw clenched. I have my orders. He shoved past her. The barrier of light flickered as his hand moved through it, surprising both of them. For a brief second their eyes locked. Hers full of pleading despair, his full of stubborn resolve. Then he pressed his palm against the central glyph carved into the door. The reaction was instant. The glyph blazed with light, so bright it forced him to shield his eyes. The door groaned, metal grinding as ancient seals began to shift. The floor trembled, dust raining from the ceiling as if the entire station rejected what was happening. Liara screamed, "No, do not." But the words drowned in the sound of the door splitting open. Darkness spilled out. Not just the absence of light, but a living shadow that slithered across the floor like smoke. The air grew heavy, every breath burning with cold. Jack stumbled back, his heart hammering, as whispers filled the corridor. Dozens, hundreds, layered atop each other. And then something answered. It was not a sound so much as a presence. A vast, crushing weight that pressed down on Jack's skull, filling his mind with images he did not understand. Endless void. Stars blinking out. Teeth that were not teeth. Eyes that were not eyes. A hunger that had waited so long that time itself had become meaningless. Liara fell to her knees, clutching her head. It knows we are here. Jack tried to move, tried to shut the door, but his body refused to obey. His arms shook, his chest felt tight. The whispers were louder now, curling around his thoughts like vines. You opened the door. You set me free. You are mine now. The voice was inside him. Cold. Icy. Ancient. Jack. Liara's voice cut through the fog. She crawled toward him, her hand glowing with energy as she pressed it against his chest. A warmth spread through him, pushing back the shadows, if only for a moment. Her eyes locked onto his. Listen to me. Fight it. Do not give it control. But it was already too late for some. The corridor lights flickered, then burst in showers of sparks. The metal walls groaned, as if something immense pressed against them from the other side. In the distance, alarms wailed. The station was reacting, systems failing one by one. And then, from the darkness beyond the door, shapes began to emerge. They were not fully real, half-formed, shifting like smoke, but their outlines were wrong. Too many arms, too many eyes, jaws that stretched too wide. They slithered forward, their whispers scraping against Jack's thoughts. Liara rose to her feet, light blazing from her hands. Get behind me. Jack staggered back, but he could not look away from the shadows. His fear took shape in them, his nightmares, his regrets, his memories twisted into monstrous forms. And as the first creature lunged, Liara met it with a blast of white fire that lit the corridor like a storm. The blast from Liara's hands tore through the first shadow creature, splitting it apart like smoke scattered by wind. For a moment Jack thought it was gone. But then the fragments twisted, pulling themselves back together, reshaping into something even worse. They do not die that easily, Liara shouted, her voice echoing through the trembling corridor. They are not flesh. They are thought given form. You cannot kill thought. You can only burn it away long enough to survive. Her words chilled Jack more than the monsters themselves. The shadow surged forward again, claws stretching into impossible lengths. Jack stumbled back, grabbing a loose steel rod from the ground. It felt pathetic in his hands, useless against something that was not even real. Still, when the thing lunged, instinct drove him to swing. The rod passed through the creature's body. For an instant, the shadow rippled, but then it snapped around the weapon and yanked it from his grip. The whispers grew louder. You are weak. You are nothing. You opened the door because you wanted to matter. Now you matter only as food. Jack staggered back, clutching his head. His own doubts, his own failures, were being hurled back at him in that cold voice. Liara stood firm, hurling another blast of light. The shadow screamed, not with sound, but with a vibration that shook the walls. The corridor cracked, pipes bursting as steam filled the air. And then, from deeper in the abandoned levels, another sound rose. A roar, not from the creatures, but from something alive. Heavy footsteps thundered closer. The shadows shivered, hesitating for the first time. Liara's eyes widened. No, it cannot be. Out of the smoke came a towering figure, armored in bone-like plating that glowed faintly with veins of green. Its face was hidden beneath a helm shaped like a beast's skull, and in its hands was a massive blade that hummed with energy. Jack's heart lurched. Another alien. The figure swung its blade, cleaving through two shadows in a single motion. The creatures shrieked and dissolved into smoke, their forms scattering into the cracks of the walls. The alien turned, its glowing eyes fixing on Liara. You broke the seal, it said, its voice deep and resonant, carrying both accusation and grief. Liara's face was pale. Karath, she whispered. I thought your kind were gone. The towering alien stepped closer, ignoring Jack entirely. We swore our bloodlines to guard this prison, and now I find one of my own standing in its ruins. Jack blinked, looking between them. Wait, you know him? Liara's hands trembled, but she nodded. He is a warden. My people once fought beside his to lock this thing away. His clan must have hidden themselves here, keeping watch even as the years passed. Karath lowered his blade, but his eyes burned with anger. And you brought a human. You let him open it. Liara's voice cracked. I tried to stop him. Jack's chest tightened. He wanted to argue, to defend himself, but the guilt was already crushing him. He had opened the door. He had done this. The shadows hissed again, circling, their forms growing clearer, sharper, more solid. More of them poured from the open seal, filling the corridor with twisting bodies and clawed limbs. Karath raised his blade. There is no time for blame. If the seal has broken, the hunger will not stop. It will spread. This station will be the first to fall, but not the last. We must strike before it takes full shape. Liara nodded, her eyes blazing with determination. She looked at Jack. If you want to make this right, if you want to live, then fight with us. Jack swallowed hard, his hands shaking. He had no weapon, no training for this. He was a maintenance worker, not a soldier. But the thought of running, of leaving them, made his stomach twist. If he ran, this thing would not stop. It would crawl into the stars, into every world he knew. I will fight, he said, his voice low but steady. Karath's eyes narrowed. Then you had better learn quickly, human. The shadows lunged. Karath roared, swinging his blade in arcs of light, each strike cutting through multiple creatures at once. Liara moved like flowing water, her hands weaving streams of fire that burned holes through the darkness. Jack grabbed a broken pipe and wired it into a sparking control panel. Electricity snapped to life, arcing down the metal. When the next shadow leapt at him, he shoved the sparking end into its chest. The creature convulsed with a screech before bursting apart like smoke in a storm. Jack blinked, breathless. He had done it. Liara spared him a glance, eyes flashing with something between relief and urgency. Good. Do it again. More shadows poured out, their forms growing taller, more solid. One towered over the rest, its head crowned with writhing horns, its eyes burning with red fire. When it spoke, the words rumbled through the air, through their bones. You opened my prison. You gave me voice. Soon you will give me flesh. The lights shattered. The corridor plunged into darkness, broken only by the glow of Liara's fire and Karath's blade. Jack's stomach dropped. The real fight had only just begun. The horned shadow surged forward, its massive form slamming against the walls with a force that shook the corridor. Pipes burst, metal screamed, sparks rained down. The vibration carried through Jack's bones like the whole station was crying out in pain. Karath planted his feet and lifted his glowing blade. This is only its echo. If the full form breaks through, none of us will live. The shadow opened its jaws, rows upon rows of teeth stretching into a pit of endless dark. It roared, not a sound, but a pressure that made Jack's vision blur, his heart stumble in his chest. He nearly fell to his knees. Liara grabbed his arm, her touch steady, her voice sharp. Do not listen to it. Remember who you are. It feeds on weakness. Jack forced himself to breathe, clenching his fists until his nails cut his palms. He nodded once, though fear not at him. Korath struck first, his blade cleaving into the shadow's leg. The creature shrieked, its form splintering into smoke, but almost instantly reformed. Its claws lashed out, tearing across the corridor, ripping through steel. Korath raised his arm, blocking the strike with his armor, but the impact sent him sliding back, gouging deep marks into the floor. Liara stepped forward, weaving both hands together. Light bloomed in her palms, building into a sphere that pulsed like a miniature star. She hurled it forward. The blast struck the horned beast in the chest, exploding in a shockwave that burned away dozens of lesser shadows. The beast staggered, but it did not fall. Jack's instincts screamed to run, but his eyes darted to a broken power conduit sparking against the wall. An idea hit him. He sprinted toward it, ignoring the roar behind him, and tore loose a cable as thick as his arm. Electricity arced wildly, nearly throwing him back. "Hey!" he shouted at the creature, voice hoarse but steady. "Over here." The beast turned. For one dreadful second, Jack felt its gaze pierce him, an endless hunger locking onto his very soul. He nearly froze, but forced himself to thrust the sparking cable forward. The arc of energy lashed into the creature's chest. Its body convulsed, smoke ripping from its form as if its shape was unraveling. The thing screamed, thrashing, the sound so loud it felt like the walls themselves cracked. Korath did not waste the opening. With a roar, he charged, swinging his blade in a massive arc. The weapon cut through the beast from shoulder to hip, splitting it into two collapsing halves that burst into a cloud of black mist. For a moment, silence returned. The lesser shadows scattered into cracks, retreating deeper into the darkness. Jack collapsed to his knees, chest heaving, sweat dripping from his forehead. His hands shook uncontrollably, the smell of ozone still stinging his nose. Korath loomed over him, his massive frame casting a shadow. The alien's voice rumbled, not unkindly. "For a human, you fight like one who has lost everything." Jack managed a bitter laugh. "Feels like I am about to." Liara crouched beside him, her glowing eyes filled with both relief and worry. "You did well. But that was not the true creature. That was only a fragment. The real one still waits beyond." Jack's head snapped toward her. "Wait, you mean, that thing wasn't it?" Korath shook his head slowly. "No, that was merely its breath, given shape by your fear. The heart of it lies deeper, where the seal is weakest. That is where we must go." The words sank into Jack like stones. The fight they had nearly died in was only the beginning. From above, alarms blared through the outpost. A metallic voice echoed through the comms in Jack's ear. "Turner, report. What is happening down there? We are detecting massive system failures across the station. Respond immediately." Jack froze. If command found out, if they realized what he had done, they would never understand. They would send soldiers, scientists, maybe even weapons, and all of them would be swallowed by what had been unleashed. He pulled the communicator from his ear and crushed it under his boot. Liara blinked at him. I cannot let them come down here," Jack said, his voice low but firm. "They will make it worse. They will not listen." For the first time, Korath's eyes softened. "Perhaps you are not as foolish as I thought." The corridor trembled again. A low pulse, like a heartbeat, rolled through the metal floor. From the open doorway, the shadows thickened, twisting together like veins crawling across the walls. The air grew heavy, colder, each breath like swallowing ice. Liara stood, her expression hardening. "It is pulling its strength together. We have to move now." Jack pushed himself to his feet, legs unsteady but holding. "Move where?" Korath pointed the blade toward the yawning dark of the open chamber. "Into the heart of its prison. If we do not stop it there, nothing will stop it anywhere." Jack stared into that abyss, his stomach tight, his mind screaming at him to turn back. But Liara's hand brushed his, grounding him. Her voice was quiet, steady. "We face it together." He met her glowing eyes, then looked at the massive warden standing beside her, and for the first time, he felt something stronger than fear, resolve. Jack nodded. "Then let's finish what I started." And together, they stepped into the darkness. The chamber beyond the sealed door was nothing like the station above. Jack had walked through endless steel corridors, rooms of cold machinery and rusted pipes. But here, the walls were alive. They pulsed faintly, like the veins of some ancient beast. Black stone curved into impossible arches, and lines of glowing script ran across the surface, shifting as though the words themselves were still breathing. The air was damp, heavy, and every sound they made seemed to echo for miles. Jack's throat was dry. This place is not human. Liara's voice was hushed. It is not even mine. My people helped to seal it, but this structure, it was older than us when the first stars of my world were born. Karath lifted his blade, its glow cutting through the gloom. Do not speak too loud. It listens. They moved carefully, each step sending small ripples through the dust and water that coated the floor. In the distance, faint cries rose and fell, like voices calling from far away, though none of them sounded whole. Jack's skin prickled with every sound. As they pressed deeper, Jack noticed movement in the shadows ahead. He froze, gripping the sparking cable he had taken as a weapon. Liara raised a hand, light blooming faintly around her fingers. Shapes stepped out, not shadow creatures this time, but figures wrapped in tattered robes of bone-white fabric, their skin gray and rough like stone. Their eyes glowed with the same faint green as the script on the walls. Karath stiffened. Wardens, his voice rumbled with both respect and sorrow. The figures lowered their hoods. They were alien, their faces long and sharp, with ridges running across their brows. Age weighed heavily on them, but their movements carried purpose. One stepped forward, leaning on a staff carved with ancient symbols. Karath, the elder said, his voice like gravel. You live. Karath bowed his head. I live. And I failed. The seal is broken. The elder's eyes shifted to Jack and Liara, studying them with the weight of centuries. Then the hunger will rise again. Liara's voice shook. We can still stop it. Tell us how. The elder closed his eyes, his chest rising with a slow, painful breath. The prison is fractured. The hunger will take form if it reaches the heart chamber. If it binds itself to flesh and thought, there will be no end to it. You must strike before then. But to reach the chamber, you must pass through the wound. The wound? Jack asked. The elder's eyes opened again, glowing faintly. The place where it first tore into this world. A scar in reality itself. There, it is strongest. And there, it feeds on what you fear most. Jack's chest tightened. He thought of the shadows that had already twisted his nightmares into living things. If this was worse, he did not know if he could survive it. The elder raised his staff, and the ground beneath them trembled. A section of the chamber wall shifted, stone unfolding like petals to reveal a passage spiraling downward. Cold air gusted out, carrying whispers too faint to understand. Go, the elder said. We will hold back what we can, but you must strike at its heart. Karath bowed once more, then turned without hesitation. Liara followed, though her face was pale. Jack lingered a moment, staring at the alien guardians who had lived their lives in the dark, keeping watch while the rest of the galaxy forgot. He swallowed hard, then forced his legs to move. The passage spiraled downward for what felt like miles. The deeper they went, the heavier the air became, until every breath was like swallowing ash. The whispers grew louder, pressing against Jack's skull, shaping themselves into voices he knew. His mother's voice, long gone, calling his name in disappointment. His commander's voice, cold and sharp, mocking his failures. Even Liara's voice, breaking as she begged him not to open the door. Jack stumbled, clutching his head. I cannot. Liara grabbed his arm, her eyes fierce. Do not believe it. Those are not voices. They are knives, meant to cut into you. Karath glanced back, his tone steady. The wound tests us. If you fall to it, you will become one of its servants. Jack forced his legs to keep moving, each step heavier than the last. Finally, the passage opened into a vast chamber. It was like stepping into the center of a storm. The walls curved outward into a dome, so vast Jack could not see the end. The air was thick with shadows twisting in endless patterns, and in the center, suspended above a chasm, hung the wound. It was a tear, not in stone, not in metal, but in reality itself. A jagged rift of darkness, bleeding light that shifted between colors Jack's eyes could barely comprehend. From it poured endless whispers, a chorus of voices older than stars. Jack's stomach turned. His knees weakened. He had never felt so small, so meaningless. Liara's hand brushed his, grounding him again. Her eyes glowed with defiance. That is where we strike. Karatha's grip tightened on his blade. and that is where it will strike back. Even as he spoke, the shadows began to gather. They poured from the rift, merging, twisting, forming a body. A head rose, crowned with horns of writhing smoke. Arms stretched, clawed and endless. Its chest pulsed with a heart of burning void. And its eyes locked onto Jack, Liara, and Karath with hunger older than time. You freed me. You carried me from silence into voice. Now you will carry me into flesh. The ground split, the air howled, and the final battle began. The rift pulsed like a living heart, and with every beat, the creature before them grew larger. Its body was a shifting storm of shadow and fire, its claws scraping lines of darkness into the stone beneath it. Its voice filled the chamber, echoing not just in their ears, but in their bones. You came into my silence. You broke my chains. And now you will know what it means to be unmade. The pressure was so heavy Jack could barely breathe. His chest tightened like a vice, his legs threatening to buckle. He had fought the fragments. Yes, but this was no fragment. This was the source. This was hunger itself. Liara stepped in front of him, her hands raised, light pouring from her palms in ribbons of fire. Do not let it inside your mind. Hold on to who you are. Karath lifted his massive blade, the glow along its edge blazing brighter than before. If it takes shape, we are finished. Strike with me now, before it fully binds to this world. The beast roared, and shadows rushed outward in waves. Dozens of twisted forms clawed their way from the floor, each one taking shapes meant to wound them. Jack saw his old commander's sneer carved into a creature's face. Another wore the broken smile of a friend he had once failed to save. His knees trembled. They look like. Liara's voice cut sharp. Lies. Nothing but lies. Fight them. Karath swung his blade in a wide arc, cleaving through 3 of the illusions. Smoke exploded from their bodies, but already more surged forward. Liara's hands blazed, her fire-burning paths through the swarm. Jack gripped the sparking cable tighter. His fear screamed at him to run, but something deeper held him in place. He looked at Liara, her eyes fierce even as sweat ran down her silver skin. He looked at Karath, his body straining, but unbroken, and he thought of the door, of his mistake. He had caused this. He would not run. With a roar, Jack slammed the sparking cable into the ground, sending a surge of electricity arcing outward. Shadows shrieked as the shockwave cut through them. For a moment, the swarm faltered. The entity's massive head turned toward him. Its eyes, endless void burning with hunger, locked onto Jack. You are mine, it whispered. You open the way. You are the key. Give yourself to me, and I will let the others live. The temptation sank into him like claws. He saw flashes, Liara screaming as she was devoured, Karath crushed beneath claws, the station above crumbling into fire. The voice promised him an end to guilt, to fear. All he had to do was surrender. Jack's grip loosened. His vision blurred. Jack! Liara's voice cracked through the haze. She seized his hand, pressing her glowing palm against his. Warmth surged through him, light spilling into his chest, burning away the whispers. Her eyes locked on his, fierce and unyielding. You are stronger than it. Do not give it what it wants. Jack gasped, air flooding back into his lungs. He staggered, but he held on. He squeezed her hand, forcing his voice to steady. I am not yours. Not now. Not ever. The entity shrieked, shadows thrashing violently. The ground split wider, and the wound flared, spilling torrents of burning light. Karath roared, raising his blade high. Now, while it is unstable, Liara turned both hands toward Jack. Energy coiled between them, fire twisting into a searing spear. Her voice was urgent. Take it. Only a human can end this. You opened the seal, so you must strike the heart. Jack's breath caught. Me? I cannot. You can, she shouted, her voice raw with belief. Take it, Jack. End this. The spear of fire solidified in his hands, blazing hot, but not burning him. It hummed with energy, vibrating like it wanted to leap from his grip. The shadows swarmed closer, the entity lowering its massive head, its maw yawning wide. You are nothing, it whispered. You will always be nothing. Jack screamed back, his voice cracking with fury. I am Jack Turner, and I am the one who ends you. With every ounce of strength, he hurled the spear into the rift where the creature's heart pulsed. The impact was blinding. Light exploded outward, searing across the chamber like a newborn sun. The shadows shrieked, their bodies unraveling, their whispers turning into screams of agony. The entity writhed, its massive form collapsing into streams of smoke, clawing desperately to hold shape. But the fire tore it apart, burning it down to nothing. The wound flared once, pulsing brighter than any star Jack had ever seen. Then it began to close, the edges sealing with cracks of light. The whispers faded, replaced by silence. True silence, heavy and still. Jack collapsed to his knees, the spear gone, his body trembling. His chest heaved, every muscle aching as if he had been torn apart and put back together. Liara knelt beside him, her eyes soft but shining. You did it. Karath lowered his blade, his voice solemn. It is not destroyed. It never can be. But it is sealed once more. Stronger this time. Strong enough to last until your kind and mine are long gone. Jack swallowed hard, staring at the fading rift. I thought it would win. For a moment, I almost gave in. Liara touched his shoulder, her voice gentle. But you did not. And that is what makes the difference between a victim and a guardian. For the first time in what felt like forever, Jack let out a shaky laugh. A maintenance worker turned guardian. That is a story no one will ever believe. Karath placed a massive hand on his shoulder. Perhaps. But belief does not matter. Deeds do. The chamber stilled. The rift closed. And for the first time, Jack felt the weight lift from his chest. Above them, the station groaned but held. The alarms faded. Silence filled the outpost once again. Not the heavy silence of something waiting, but the clean silence of peace hard-earned. Jack stood, unsteady but alive. He looked at Liara and Karath, two unlikely allies bound together by something greater than any order. He smiled faintly. Well, what now? Liara's lips curved in the smallest of smiles. Now we live. And we remember. And together, they turned from the sealed chamber, leaving the darkness behind. For now.